Hey, welcome to the Scott Mann Podcast. We are on the road looking for great examples of human connection, and we're also starting to pull the thread on veterans in the arts, something that I'm really, really excited about, something our producer Matt's really excited about because it's just happening everywhere you look. You know, veterans, first responders, military family members leading us at home, and also stepping into the arts and really helping us connect there. So this guest that we have today is somebody that just embodies all of that: storytelling, relationships, human connection, service, and certainly a contribution to the arts. Today, we're going to have with us Craig Morgan. When he's in uniform, he's also known as Chief Greer. But he is a country music legend. He absolutely needs no introduction. He's hit the Billboard country charts 17 times, with 7 of his singles in the top 10. But that's only part of his story. And as you watch this interview, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about here. Craig is an Army veteran. He's a former first responder. He served with both the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. He served in Korea, and he did all this as a forward observer and a field artillery NCO. He even jumped into combat operations in Panama, something that a very small percentage of the military population has ever done. He's been an EMT. And an assistant deputy sheriff as well, all before taking the stage in Nashville. Craig is also a devoted husband. You're going to hear that in the interview, and a father. He runs an off-grid retreat in the backcountry of Alaska with his son Kyle, named Jerry Lake, after his late son, who died at the age of 19. What I love about the interview that you're about to watch is that Craig has maintained his level sense of leadership and groundedness and human connection through the highs and the lows of his life, and he models it for the rest of us. And that's what we're going to get into right now. So without any further ado, let's jump into my interview with Craig Morgan. Welcome to the Scott Mann Podcast, where we connect like our lives depend on it. So, Craig Morgan, thanks for being with us, or Chief Greer, depending on which one we go into here. But Craig, it's really an honor to have you here with us, man. Thank you for being on the show.
It's my honor. It's a pleasure.
Well, listen, here's what I wanted to start with. I'm a child of Appalachia, so I'm a big believer in hospitality. A couple of things. Well, we'll start with this. This is just a little something from Monty and me and the team at the Scott Mann Podcast. But there's a few things in it, though, that as you make your way through them, so one of them is a wallet from a mutual buddy of ours, Matt, who a lot of time with the agency and is now, just putting really good stuff into the world. But that's a wallet he wanted to make sure that I got to you.
That's awesome.
One of the first ones off the line there. We talked about, I think, Junior's bullet pens in there. And by Gold Star dad Jeff Falkel, and then the final one there, Craig. Just I hope you like it, man. That is a play that I wrote, Last Out, Elegy of a Green Beret, and we had so many people that would come to the play, particularly veterans, and they're like, "Hey, you should just take the script and make it a book," because I'd like to just read the book, and so that is one of the scripts there signed by the cast.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, I hope you enjoy it, and it's a pretty cool read.
Well, thank you.
And we'll talk about the play and arts, some of that in the show here. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to just jump into it here. And one of the things we have, our viewership is interesting because we have a lot of veterans. When we started the podcast, we were talking about Afghanistan. We were talking about the withdrawal. We were talking about a lot of, the rise of violent extremism in the country. And then we kind of started pivoting into what I like to think kind of more of the Green Beret aspect of what I did, which was human connection and relationships. Because it feels to me like in the country that's really lacking today, and in the world, it's just there's an absence of connection. And so we try to bring folks on that really represent that embody that. And certainly in your journey, both as a soldier and as a musician and artist, you've really done a lot to promote human connection. So I kind of want to step through that, and starting with, if we could, maybe your background, the early years.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know, a lot of people I think know that you were in the Army, but like, you have a mustard stain on that uniform, man. You jumped out of a plane in combat.
Yeah.
You've had quite a ride as a soldier in the formative years of your life. Can you talk just a little bit about your growing up and coming into the Army and your service?
Yeah, simple. I was born in Middle Tennessee,
Okay.
outside of Nashville. My dad was a musician, so I grew up in and around what it is I now do.
Right.
But I think the reason I joined the Army was and not in a rebellious way, but to get away from that. I wanted to go do something else. I wanted to experience something different than that I had grown up in, if that
Right.
makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
And again, not in a rebellious way. I just wanted to experience something different. And the Army seemed to make a lot of sense. I can remember when I joined the Army, it was the Be All You Can Be campaign. And
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved the images that it made me that I seen that made me feel the things that I felt.
Yeah.
And I lived what I seen in those videos. I can remember going to the recruiter's office and, they said, "You want to be airborne?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'd love to fly planes. That'd be awesome."
Oops.
Oops.
Yep.
And I remember doing my physical, and, in the airborne physical, you have to do this thing where your arms have to go down, they have to bring them up, and they're supposed to go all the way. And I remember the doctor saying, the PA or nurse saying, negative, and he goes, "Why?" And she said, "He's not going far enough, with your elbows in. I can't bring him all the way." And he said, "Oh, that's just from lifting too much wood,
Yeah.
He'll be fine." And ended up going airborne.
Yeah.
I
was just thinking about something real quick. I grew up in a small town too, in Mount Ida, Arkansas, and graduating class of 36 people. And the second airplane I ever flew in, I jumped out of.
Yeah.
So I
The second one you flew, you jumped out of.
Yeah, I was supposed to fly.
Oh, yeah.
Or be flying in. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a part of my life that really, I think, helped mold and prepare me for the industry that I'm now in, believe it or not.
So you joined the Army, was it right out of high school?
Right. Well, I went to a year of college. And,
Okay.
for me, college just wasn't the right thing.
Yep.
Going through a lot of things at that point. My grandfather had passed away. My parents were separating. So I was going through a lot of that, and I thought this is the perfect time for me to go do something bigger and better than myself.
Yeah, right on. So you joined the Army as a paratrooper, 82nd?
Well, no, not initially. I went to 375th Ranger Regiment after the Ranger Indoctrination Program. They called it then.
Okay.
Went through RIP after airborne school. True story. It's hard. These things didn't seem abnormal at the time.
What year was
all
this?
happening? This is in 1985.
Gotcha. Okay.
When I joined, I was going through airborne school and calling. I would call cadence. I love doing that. I was a singer and didn't know it. And Leonard B. Scott wrote the book Charlie Mike. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was the commander of the airborne school at the time.
You want to know something crazy?
Tell me.
He was when I went too.
No way.
Yes, sir.
Listen to this. So this is awesome. So when I was going through, Congress had passed a bill allowing the funding for the test platoon to have a banquet. And they were going to do it at Fort Benning. So they were asking for volunteers to sing cadence. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. That'd be awesome. And so in the process of doing that, after school every day, as you know, during airborne school, you had some free time. It wasn't a lot because you were too busy getting uniform ready and all that stuff. But I had a guitar with me, and so I started writing this song about the test platoon. Well, they heard about it, and they said, "Hey, Charlie Mike wants to talk to you." I'm like, freaking, that's awesome, To me, the guy was a bit of a not hero, but he was semi-idolized him to some degree because I heard all these great stories.
Yeah.
So I went up and seen him at the White House. As you know, where all the instructors and everything go. And he said, "I heard you writing this song about the test platoon." I said, "Jersey." He said, "I want to hear it." I'm like, "Roger that, sir." So I started playing a little bit, and he said, "All right, I want you to finish that. You're going to sing that at the test platoon banquet next Friday night." I'm like, oh, wow. Airborne,
Wow.
So every day, I thought I was getting over, man. I was skating They would take me to the front of the line to everything that we did, from tower jumps to the pit, everything.
So you go work on the song.
So I could go work on the song. So I would do everything I was doing. I would go to the White House and work on the song. I finished the song, and they said the 82nd Airborne Choir is going to back you up on this. They're going to march in while you're doing this. And they did, and it was freaking, I mean,
unreal.
Again, at the time, it didn't seem like that big a deal.
Right.
But then looking back, and still today, there's a cassette of that song at the museum in Fort Benning, Georgia.
No way.
Yeah.
And I mean, Leonard B. Scott, I thought, well, he's one of those guys, right? That during that era, how many people joined because of Charlie Mike?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be what he wanted to, what he wrote about,
and the characters in that book,
yes.
the long range reconnaissance guys.
Yes.
And absolutely, man.
Yeah. He asked me, he said, "What? This is the only reason I ended up where I ended up." He said, "What do you want to do when you leave airborne school?" I said, "I want to be a black hat." And he said, "We're going to keep you at Fort Benning then."
Okay.
I said, airborne. So all these people were calling, and at the time I was supposed to be going to Fort Knox.
Okay.
I had just got married, and Fort Knox was close to Nashville, so I thought it'd be great to be close to home. It's where my new wife at the time was. And and they call off everybody's name, and I had a couple buddies I was supposed to be going to Fort Knox with. They all go over here, and they finish up, and they call off Greer. And that, like 4 other people. And I go over and stand with them, and, we got our bags, and I've got a guitar. And so I'm standing there with these 3 or 4 other guys. And I'm like, y'all know what we're doing? And one guy's like, I don't have a clue. And one guy was like, man, I was supposed to be going to the Ranger Indoctrination program. And we're like, oh, cool. And all of a sudden, here comes this Sergeant First Class screaming at the top of his lungs, "Come here, Elvis."
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And lo and behold, I'll never forget, he was one of the senior NCOICs at Ranger Indoctrination Program, and his last name was Greer.
Oh, boy.
So not only did we share the last name, but I had gotten over, I thought, and then here comes Greer, another Greer, who's going to just absolutely make my life a ever-loving hell for the next little while.
And he did.
And he did. Yes, he absolutely did. But that was the thanks
There you go.
Appreciation for doing that song. He kept me at Fort Benning, but via the Ranger Indoctrination Program.
Isn't that always the timeless reward of volunteerism in the military? Absolutely, man. But still, looking back on that, what a
Greatest
really
thing never
cool
happened
thing.
to me.
Yeah.
In my career.
Okay, so you went to RIP. Then what? What happened from there?
Sent to the 3rd Bat, the baby bat. And then
let's tell people what that means. That was the newer battalion.
It was the newest Ranger battalion, and by newer, it was of the Ranger battalions. It was the youngest.
Yes, and it was at Fort Benning.
At Fort Benning.
Yep.
So they called him the baby bat.
Yep, and there was another one at Savannah, which was 1st Battalion, and then there was another one out west in Washington State, which was 2nd Battalion.
2nd Battalion, right.
Yep.
But again, I thought I was going to Fort Knox. So I get there, things are going great. I'm a 13 Fox fire support guy, so I'm in the headquarters element, getting prepped for Ranger School.
Right.
As a Ranger out of RIP.
And for those of you who don't know, 13 Fox, fire support guys, these are the guys, and jump in here, correct me, Craig, but these are the guys who are working with other combat arms guys, typically infantry, special ops, that call in and bring all kinds of indirect fire, close air support, all that kind of stuff in support of the maneuver unit.
Yeah, any weapon system that's fired indirectly, not shoulder fired or in a direct fire aspect, someone has to be in front of there to tell them where to put those bullets, and that's what we did.
Okay.
To Charlie Mike's testament, in Vietnam, it was the shortest life expectancy of any MOS in the Army at the time.
Yeah, because you're the guy they want to take out quick.
Right, the guy with the radio on his back.
You're bringing the scunion.
Yeah. So and I wore that badge proudly. I was proud of that. I thought it made me feel like I was something special to some degree. But I ended up leaving there. Like I said earlier, I just got married and was having some marital difficulties.
Sure.
So they reassigned me back to Fort Knox to try to assist me in rectifying that situation.
Yeah.
Didn't work out, and it came down on orders for Korea. So I ended up in Korea.
Okay, but you're such a humble guy. You literally skipped through, I think, jumping out of a plane in combat. Was with you when you were with 3rd Battalion or Just Cause, or when did that actually go down?
In Just Cause, but I was actually stationed in Panama. I was with the 1st of the 508.
Okay, great unit.
Delta. We had a one Delta battery. We had one battery of artillery permanently assigned to the 1st to 508. I was the fire support platoon leader or platoon sergeant for that unit. Now, not during when I first got there, we had a different platoon sergeant, but I was the rankingest E6 at the time when I got sent over there.
Okay.
He ends up leaving, and we go into Actually, I became platoon sergeant after the conflict.
Amazing. That's amazing.
But yeah, we jumped in. So my jump didn't happen. This is where my first introduction to the agency came in. I was not. We didn't jump into the conflict. We were there. We were on ground.
Yeah,
I was there. I got there. I arrived 3 days before the coup attempt. Remember the lieutenant that got shot? And then they had the coup afterwards.
Yeah.
I was there. I was in the reception station when that started. The platoon sergeant came and got me and hollered out, "Greer, come with me. You're getting an emergency issue. This is your RTO. Welcome to Panama." And they gave us a quick issue, put me on a helicopter, and we landed on a golf course and watched the coup attempt take place and sent up sit reps. And then I had not even met my unit. I had not been to the barracks. I was still at the reception station when that happened.
What was that like?
It was a little freaky. I mean, but exciting. And you know, it's hard to explain this to the civilian populace. As a soldier, and I'm sure you can attest to this, and all the guys that I know, I mean, that's what we train for.
Yeah.
That's what I lived for.
Yeah.
I couldn't, it almost sounds a bit barbaric sometimes, but I couldn't wait to go to battle.
Yeah.
I wanted to do what I had been training to do. I wanted to represent. I wanted to be a part of that because you felt like that's what we were supposed to do. We're protecting America. We're, standing in harm's way.
Yeah.
And if you're just training, you're not standing in harm's way,
Yeah. It's like my wife, Monty, would say, people would say to her during the global war on terror, they would say, I don't see how you do this. How do you raise 3 boys by yourself? How do you even put up with that? And she's like, this is what these guys trained their whole life for.
Yeah.
This is what Green Berets have trained for their whole life. And this is it. Like, this is what we all prepared for.
And
that's
what we want to do. It's what
we
want to do so that no one else has to.
That's right.
Our kids especially,
100%. So you went to Korea. How long were you there?
Almost 18 months.
Okay.
I got extended. I went through the Korean Ranger, Rock Ranger program while I was there.
Wow. What was that like?
That was tough.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of tough things in my military and in my life, but that was one of the more physically demanding things I'd ever done.
Okay.
They were pretty brutal.
Did you extend for that course?
I got extended afterwards.
I got you.
And at this point, I had gone through the divorce, or actually, when they wouldn't even divorce us, the judge at home said, "You haven't been married long enough. I'm doing an annulment basically of your marriage." I think he did it trying to do me a favor, but it didn't change the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went through that course, and afterwards I got to stay on and do some really fun.
And that would that have been the late 80s, early 90s?
Correct, late 80s.
What was that like? What was Korea like in the late 80s?
There were still tense moments because it wasn't just prior to my entering the service. They had the conflict with the tree.
Yep.
So there were still a lot of intense moments up on the border. There would be times the alarms would go off and everybody would be like, "Oh, this is it. Here they come." But it was also, again, for a guy like me who was living for that, those were, exciting moments.
I want to geek out because I never served in Korea, and I want to geek out just on the field artillery side and on the indirect fire side. You must have had some pretty intense pre-planned fires.
Yes.
For if the balloon went up, right?
Yeah. I mean, in any war planning situation, as anybody in the military, especially those who are involved in the war planning process, that was one of the more intense areas that we ever did that. Panama was off the cuff. It happened. Here we go.
Right.
That didn't mean that we didn't have pre-planned processes, but when you start integrating elements outside, it gets a little more intense, as you know.
Yeah.
But that's what we did.
Yeah.
Where Korea, they had war plans that had dated back to the 50s.
Right.
So there were elements
you kind of fall in on that.
Correct. And they just replace various aspects of that planning process with the newer and more modernized technology, which looking back on with the technology we have now, is like that was prehistoric.
100%.
But what they had was prehistoric compared to what we were utilizing.
Yeah. So you went from Airborne School Test Platoon to the 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, Fort Benning, and then to Knox for a bit, and then over to Korea.
Correct.
On the DMZ, the Demilitarized Zone, as you said, kind of falling in on a pre-existing war plan, but a very tense environment, and then from there to Panama.
No,
right?
From there to Fort Campbell. Went to Fort Campbell.
Right on. Okay. Tell me about that.
101st.
All right.
Fire support with the DeVarty. I was the Divisional Fire Support NCO there.
Okay.
And that's where I had my first introduction to the community, per se, really.
Yeah.
5th group was at Fort Campbell, as you know. And I had a friend that was a former fire supporter who ended up in group, started mixing. He and I had gone through basic and AIT and airborne and RIP together.
Okay.
And he ended up at 5th group, and he called me one time and said, "Hey, we need a fire support NCO over here. Can you come fill in for a bit?" Like, freaking, hey, I'd love this. It'd be fun,
Yeah.
And that was off and on for a year and a half, and then I left. And what was ironic, I was on orders for Panama as an accompanied tour.
Yeah.
So I was so excited. My wife, we had a brand new daughter. We get to go experience another part of the world, and I get to do it as a family.
Yeah.
About a month prior to my deployment, my vehicle had already been shipped over.
Yep.
They had started having some conflict, so they declared it an unaccompanied tour.
Right.
I ended up going by myself, and then, as I alluded to earlier, got there, things started kicking off, and from the time that happened until after the conflict, it was nonstop, intense.
Yeah, man. And so you get on the ground and you're basically in processing.
Yes, I was literally at the in processing station.
And there's a battalion in Panama, first of the 508th. There's, I think, in the 5th, the 87th too. There was a
Yep.
So there's 2 infantry battalions. Yep. There's 3rd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group.
Correct.
Is also on the ground.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know that, but there was a fairly large contingent of combat power because of the canal.
Correct.
On the ground. And everything is kind of falling apart around that with Noriega and all of this. So you show up, you're in processing, and you get a different set of instructions to go fall in for a different set of gear. And what do you think? Like, what the hell is this? Like,
I thought it. Honestly, I thought it was either someone was pranking me, or it was a training exercise. I really had. There was no thought whatsoever about conflict, even though we'd had little, scourges of things happening here and there, but it was nothing so drastic that in my mind I was going, "Oh, shit's about
getting ready to go down."
Yeah, never thought that.
So and I know there's some of this you have to be careful about, so don't let me step on that. But just like, what can you tell us about that experience of getting this new set of gear, new set of instructions, and frankly, taking on a mission set that was somewhat outside the scope of what you thought you were going to be doing?
Yeah, it was. Completely outside. The job was the same, but the orientation and the utilization of the skill set was not expected to be at that time. Especially under the circumstances, the way things came about. They had started this march based on the confrontation between an American lieutenant that resulted in some bad stuff. I mean, this is stuff that everybody's read about. It's all over television after the fact.
Yeah. It was kind of the build up to the war, wasn't it?
Right. It was the build up. And like literally put us on a helicopter. I knew no one. I was given, back then we had a book with running codes. You remember all of this.
Totally.
Our frequencies. Yeah. And on the aircraft on the way out, they're like, "Hey, I need the book back when you hit the ground." So I had to try to memorize frequencies, passwords.
On infill? You're trying to memorize during
infill. During infill.
Not
and
a good idea.
Only had about a 20-minute flight from where we were over to the golf course. Dropped us off, sat down, airborne, have a good mission.
Wow.
You know, and my RTO was just as stunned as I was, and he was already in the country. A guy by the name of Sedang. He was a specialist Sedang at the time. We hit the ground and went over to, this is terrible. I don't remember the hole, but I want to say hole number 9 of the golf course, where we were overwatching the road, and we literally watched the march as it was happening, you know, and every now and then, you know, you hear gunfire, they'd be shooting guns. And what was ironic, I remember seeing this and thinking about movies.
Yeah.
I remember watching this, and in my head, movies from Vietnam were replaying as a kid that I watched.
Because that was your pattern. That's what you remembered.
That's what I remembered. And I could see kids, and I thought, man, if these guys, you know, if these kids come at us, we're going to have to shoot kids.
Wow.
And it was, you know, a little disturbing and a lot of stuff happening. Yeah, and then amidst all this, a Panamanian kid walks up with a serving tray full of, you know, he had food, basically food, wanting to give us food for money and swap it for MREs and that kind of stuff.
Crazy. And I think was it Amador?
Fort Amador.
Fort Amador is where that went down. Yeah, I've played golf on it.
Yeah.
After the invasion, which is really bizarre. But you know, one of the other things about the Panama, the Just Cause conflict that I always fascinated me was, do you remember the story of Ma Bell, the Ma Bell Operation Ma Bell, where the Green Berets used the payphones to call guys from the comandancias and the quartels to come out?
True story.
Absolutely. It's I think, to me, one of the coolest representations of what Green Berets are supposed to do in a conflict, but yet very few people know about it.
We did the exact same thing on the Balboa Denny station. Really? During that conflict, we were having issues with comms, and we had a satellite phone, and we did the exact same thing, only to establish we ended up doing all of our calls for fire through there, but no one had the correct setting for the radio.
So you just had to
literally use the satellite phone, called headquarters, said, hey, this is the frequency that we're on, and we need to be able to communicate with the Spectre. Yeah.
Wow. So for those of you who haven't heard of Operation Ma Bell, just very quickly, it was, and I interviewed Major Higgins. He was an SF company commander. He went in with a handful of guys into northern Panama and basically secured the surrender of hundreds, if not a full brigade, of Panamanians by calling from a payphone and demanding their surrender, or they were going to drop a bomb. And he did it in Spanish. These were SF guys that lived in the country, but looking back on it, this happened across the country, and they called it Operation Ma Bell, and it was one of the most successful surrender psyops ever done.
It was absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite stories ever.
It was just,
and being there at that time when all that happened.
I can't imagine. Yeah. And so how the overall conflict was fairly short in the scheme of things, but pretty intense.
Right. Yeah.
Pretty intense when you're going through it.
It was. It was extremely intense. And that, again, as I said earlier, that was my first introduction to the agency. So the day that the 82nd Airborne Division was jumping back home, the conflict's basically over. There was cleanup and different things. I was at the barracks. We had come back to our unit, and everybody's kind of doing the high five. You know, what a cool experience. And someone showed up at the barracks and said, "We need a fire support person." And by now I'm the acting platoon sergeant. Wow. And another E6 was our acting platoon leader. Both of our lieutenant had gotten shot. Lieutenant White got shot in the ass, and so he was gone. And our platoon sergeant, as soon as he got the word, he was on orders already to leave, so he was gone. So the two of us there, and I said, "What's it for?" And he said, "Well, we can't tell you that." "Well, where are we going?" "We can't tell you that." And I said, "Well, if you can't tell me that, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna ask any of these guys to go."
Yeah.
No clue what I was doing. They said, "You need an FO and an RTO with you."
Field artillery radio telephone operator.
Correct.
Or forward observer.
Forward observer.
Yeah.
So I grabbed Chip Steele, who was my forward observer at the time, and I want to say he had either Sedang or Helm. One of our RTOs came. And be ready in, I don't remember how much time. We gathered up all our crap. We show up, and there's an ODA team and 2 representatives from the agency. And I'm like, "What are we doing?" And they're like, "We'll brief you in the air." And so we went up north up on the Costa Rican border with them, and we started pushing south. They were still just gathering intel and stuff. And we did that for 3 days. But what was ironic, and I, again, I'm not indulging in anything that isn't public knowledge now. The time on target for us, this is where I got my jump. The time on target for us was the exact same time on target for the division to jump back into Fort Bragg. No Everybody's celebrating the news of showing the 82nd Airborne Division, because I remember going, this is bullshit. Yeah. Everybody thinks it's over. What if we die?
Yeah.
Is anybody going to know?
Right.
But it was also very exciting, Yeah. I know, again, it might sound a little bizarre, but.
No, not at all.
But I remember hitting the ground thinking, this is bullshit. Everybody thinks it's over and we're up here still freaking fighting,
And there was some significant fighting in the North. I know, because that was something that Higgins told me, was there was the Ma Bell thing, but then you had the Dignity Battalion holdouts and all those cats that were the hardcore, and they had to be rooted out.
Yep.
Wow.
It was an experience.
So then, so then you come back to Panama City, and
back to the unit, and our unit was disbanded, the artillery unit, not the 508.
So what happened then?
So. It was the strangest thing ever. We're literally in the barracks, and the first sergeant and the commander, battery commander, come up and hand me the keys to the building and to the arms room and said, "We're leaving. You guys, good luck."
All right, wait a minute.
It was such disarray.
So what is the span of time in Panama?
I had been back from that mission 3 days. When they told us what was going on.
What was the total time from when you landed in Panama first
until
time?
They handed me the key? Oh, from Maybe 45 days.
That's what I'm trying to get across to people. Like, this wasn't like multiple years. In 45 days, you landed on the ground. You were assigned to the agency, inserted. You watched a coup go down. Then. You go back to your unit. You're the platoon sergeant or the acting platoon sergeant. Then you get pushed up north again while everybody else is coming home for the victory parade. You're jumping in to the north. You get back from that, and they stand your unit down.
Yeah, and they leave and hand us the keys. And we're like, "What do we do?" And they're like, "You guys are attached to the artillery." The commander, the
figured out,
is working on it. But in the meantime, y'all stay right here in this building. And we're like, man, so literally, that's when John Davis and I were the two rankingest E6s. We literally started sending people on leave, sending them to schools. We did all the paperwork and shit ourselves. And we would hand walk it up to headquarters, and we had signed it. Eventually, as I was leaving to come back to the States, they started moving the individual teams to the companies that they were supporting.
Okay.
So each, Alpha company, fire support team would go live in the barracks, and they emptied that building. But that didn't happen until after I left. I was gone when they finished that process.
So then did you return home back to the States at that point?
At that point, I came back I went to Fort Bragg.
Okay. 82nd?
82nd.
And how long were you there?
2.5 years.
Wow. And so how much time in the Army at this point after that 2.5 years at Bragg?
Gosh, I got to do the math.
About 10 years?
Probably, yeah.
About 10-year mark?
8 years, 8.5, somewhere in there.
Okay. And then where'd you go from there? What happened next?
So I was at Fort Bragg for 2.5 years, and of course, but when I left Panama to go to Bragg, the division had already deployed.
Yeah.
For Desert Storm.
Right. So
I get there and almost no one's there.
Right.
And the same kind of a situation. I happen to be the rankingest E6. I moved my family in to quarters, and I show up, and they're like, "Hey, you're in charge of the rear detachment."
Wow.
I'm like, "No, I'm not. I do not want this headache. I don't care what I got to do. I will go AWOL.
Yeah.
I will do whatever. I'm not staying here." That was just the mentality, and that was one of my more difficult times mentally, just having to be in charge of that element. And I don't want to degrade or sound negative towards anyone that was there.
It. Yeah.
But generally the rear detachment are those folks that aren't physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever, equipped to deploy.
Yeah.
You know, guys that are broke or hurt. You're dealing with the spouses of those that are deployed.
Yeah.
And sometimes in that time, it was really, those were ugly, difficult times. And
Right.
And it was just a lot. It was a lot to deal with. And I just didn't, not that I didn't want to help, I just wanted to be back overseas.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd been gone from my family for a year. I had a brand new daughter that I'd barely seen.
Right.
And the last thing my wife wanted was for me to take right back off again.
Yes.
John Davis, who I talked about in Panama, he ends up coming over too. He joined me later there. Same situation, two ranking guys dealing with headaches. And
so what did you end up doing?
Well, I'm still in the Army, so I'm hesitant to talk about this.
Yeah.
I think enough time has passed. What do they call that? Where they can't prosecute you?
Yeah. Well, here we go.
I didn't get in terrible trouble, but we did get yelled at heavily by the commander at the time, who happened to be Colonel. I remember Hood, who ended up now General Hood. He was the commander. We had to deliver some weapons to the Marine base for them to be shipped over. Being the guys in charge and back, John and I typed up our orders to deploy with the weapons. That didn't go over real well. So I was I was in my 201 file. It says I was missing in action for like 30 days.
So you went overseas?
I did not go overseas.
Okay, I got you. All right, we'll leave it there.
And I had to go back.
Right.
Yeah. It was what the hell are you doing here when we got there and turned around and came back. I came back home and my wife did not even know what we had done. And she didn't know till years later.
Man.
Truth be long, I didn't even tell her.
Wow.
Until years later, John was talking about it. And she was like, no, y'all went to, what's the Marine?
Lejeune.
Y'all went to Lejeune. I said, yeah, we did. And for a minute, we were gone. And
you gave it a shot.
We tried, I'm a little embarrassed by it because it wasn't very professional. Honestly, I should have manned up and done what I was asked to do.
Yeah, but history is replete history is replete for young guys trying to get in the fight.
All it was, man. Yeah. And I was so frustrated with what was going on there.
Yeah.
I was dealing with family issues that I'll be honest, I was not mentally equipped to deal with the marital problems that was handed to us.
Yeah.
Many times wives coming in, handing us stuff, or I would get a letter from the commander, and then we're not talking about a battery commander.
Yeah.
We're talking about a DeVarty commander.
Yeah.
And I'm an E6, and I'd get a letter from a DeVarty commander talking about this soldier whose wife is coming to see me because she is having an affair.
Yeah.
And she sent a video to her husband.
Yeah.
A VHS tape. And I'm like, I'm just not, I wasn't a psychologist or psychiatrist. And I know
not resource to handle that
I just
either.
didn't have the resources to deal with it. And we were having to try to process all that.
Yeah.
I think we did okay, but at the same time, it was one of those things like I didn't want to do it.
I think about what our rear detachments did in the global war on terror, a 20-year war, and our families. I know my wife, Monty, and a lot of the special forces spouses, the stuff they dealt with and how because I do think in the 20-year war, I think the rear detachment stuff and the family readiness groups really professionalized. They had to.
Yes, absolutely.
They had to. And they, I think, have come a long way in how they handle. And 100%. There's still a lot of problems. There's still challenges.
Absolutely. But I agree with you. I think we've actually made a lot of progress in how, if nothing else, the transitioning back, the process. I can remember we came back, it was like, hey, thank you, good luck, go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, while we're on the field artillery piece, I've got one other gift I want to give you here. This is from my buddy Lenny Bruce. Lenny is a former first group team sergeant. But before that, he was field artillery, NCO, just like you. Was in Germany. But anyway, Lenny and I were in Afghanistan together in 04, 05. And then when I stood up the play, last out, Elegy of a Green Beret, a lot of that story is about a composite character named Danny Patton, who's based on 3 team sergeants that I knew and didn't make it home. And Danny is trying to let go of the pain of war, but he's been mortally wounded. He's trying to go to Valhalla, and he can't ascend. And so he's stuck. So his buddy Kenny comes down from Valhalla, who was killed on 9/11 in the Pentagon, based on my Ranger buddy Cliff, who I lost. And so Lenny plays Kenny, Danny's best friend.
Oh, no way.
And so through the years of performing this play, Lenny was the first guy that came to do the play with me. I'd never acted in my life, and we like the ultimate midlife crisis. And but we become like best buddies doing this play, 28,000 miles on a U-Haul van, 36 cities. And Lenny was just at my side for all of it. He's still in the play right now, still touring with it. But when he found out I was interviewing you, he wanted to make sure that I gave you this.
Oh, that's awesome, buddy.
So,
Thank you.
If you want to
okay if I
tear
open
it
it?
open, man.
Yeah.
But the name of his company is Drop 50. So you'll know exactly what that is for folks watching or
Fire for
listening.
effect.
That's right. That's a field artillery term right before you tell them to fire for effect.
Oh, I love it. Look, man, I just got a little chicken skin.
Yeah, man. But he has, in my mind, you have the grunt style shirts. Well, these are, kind of based on that, but just the absolute coolest field artillery
I can't wait till
gear.
my buddies see this. All of my fifth platoon.
It's the best T-shirts you've ever seen for working out, and just the lake up in Alaska. I think you're gonna I wear them all the time.
Oh,
I
I
rep
love
them.
it, man.
So
My
anyway,
fist buddies are gonna love it.
yeah,
man.
yeah. So Lenny sends that with his regards, man.
I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Lenny, when he watches this, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I look forward to shaking your hand.
Yeah, man. May get you to get a photo of it with at some point, but
For sure.
well, so what happened after Bragg? Where did you go from there?
Progressing in the career, at that point I was 8+ years, and so you
Kind of at that
you have a
decision
few
point,
options,
aren't you?
Yeah, and and then it's either drill sergeant, one of those things, and I opted to go to the Joint Readiness Training Center as an OC.
Okay.
So I was the fire support OC for all special operations fire support.
Right on.
Which was one of the best jobs I ever had.
Yeah.
I took so much pride in being able to. Always felt like I was navigating, helping others, 13 Foxes navigate their careers.
Yeah.
And again, I was a young E6, but I was at this point I made the E7 promotions list, so I was subject to get my E7.
Yeah.
And it was a great time working with all these elements from all over the country and all over the world, actually.
Right.
When we would do joint, anytime group came in and they were working with foreign nations, I was the OC for all the fire support operations. So
Yeah. Wow.
great gig.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I had to make a
Fort
decision.
Pope just a garden spot to be?
If you're in the outdoors,
you're
it's a great
outdoorsman,
spot.
it is.
A lot of people called it the armpit of the earth.
Yeah, but if you're an outdoorsman, it is absolutely.
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
a great time in my family's career because for the first time in my life as a soldier and husband, I was able to spend time with my family, because in between rotations,
predictable.
yeah, and we had 4-day weekends.
Yeah.
Every weekend we were off in between rotations.
Yeah.
So I did things with my family. I became a coach for my kids'
Nice.
ball teams and got to experience that really for the first time.
So at this point, you're over 10 years.
Yes, now I'm over 10.
Okay.
And I have to make a decision to re-enlist. And I was going to re-enlist.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I went and sat down and talked with my then commander, who had become a good friend, shared the same name, Colonel Bill Greer.
Right.
His wife's name was Karen, and my wife's name was Karen. So we had two Karen Greer's spouses, which was funny because for the first 3 or 4 months of his command, my wife was never invited to any of the wives' outings or events, the dinners and different things they did, because he said he would always get 2 Karen Greer notifications and he'd throw one away and give one to his wife. He didn't realize my wife's name was Karen.
Oh, that's funny.
But we became dear friends. His wife ended up becoming, and I'll pass by this, but she ended up becoming my president of my fan club when I first started the music business. But I'll never forget, I sat down with him when it came time to re-enlist, and he said, I said, I really want your advice, and he said, look here, you're about to be pinned E7. You'll get this based upon this re-enlistment. You're going to be an E7. He said, I believe that if you stay in the Army, you'll be Sergeant Major of the Army someday. And I mean, that's it. That's the pinnacle of a non-commissioned officer, in my opinion. And he said, but I will also tell you, I think you have a very special gift. And I think you would be remiss if you didn't at least try it.
What a leader.
He was a great man.
Right, because he's, I mean, this is what it just
truly we're looking out for me.
Looking out for you
Yes.
too. And now, by the way, music is starting to emerge from you at this point as well, right? So
I've been writing,
yes,
and on those 4-day weekends, a lot of times I would come back to Nashville. I'm from here. I'd go see my parents, my kids, my wife and kids would come, and those evenings I would go do writers' nights with some writers' friends. Again, growing up in the business,
you knew them.
I had friends that I'd grown up with that are now songwriters,
right,
establishing themselves and done fairly well. Marla Cannon Goodman, her dad was Buddy Cannon, who produced my first record, who I grew up with on the same street. And Marla would say, let's write, and then let's do a writer's night at the Bluebird, or let's do a writer's night. So I would sing songs, and I would have these other writers come up and go, bro, what a great song. You're a great singer. And one thing led to another. Before you know it, I started really, pursuing that every opportunity I got.
Are you feeling conflict at this point?
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult.
See, and that's the other thing too that I think about your leader that you sat down with there. Was it Colonel Greer?
Bill Greer.
Bill Greer. But the fact that he also saw the conflict in you, and the leadership he applied was also just in helping you resolve that conflict. It wasn't just what was best for the Army. It wasn't what just was best for you, but also just trying to really look at the conflict that was going on inside you and help you sort that out. To me, that's real leadership.
Stud Ranger
right.
leader who cared about every aspect and took everything into consideration. In fact, so much so that he gave me great advice that I took and did. He said, look, it's going to be difficult for you, obviously, to pursue this active duty. Go into the reserve, active reserves.
Okay.
You can be stationed somewhere close to home. If it doesn't work out, if you're not happy with it, you're not going to lose your rank or your time in service. And then you can come back into the active duty. Okay. And that's what I did. And I came back to Nashville to Fort Campbell.
All right.
I was in the 101st RTOC.
Okay.
As a fire support NCO. And so that afforded me the opportunity to work in the writing and the music industry. And mind you, at the time, I wasn't thinking to myself I was going to be an artist. I wanted to be a songwriter.
Really?
That's all. I really just wanted to write songs.
Okay.
And I knew that if I established myself, if I had some success as a writer, I could probably go back into active duty and just keep writing. Because you can write songs from anywhere. Okay. So that was, in my head, I was always thinking, the backup plan.
What years about would this have been?
This was
mid-90s or?
2000.
2000.
Yeah. 99 was when I was in, I actually left in 96. Active duty was in the reserves.
I got you. Okay. And so what was transition like for you? You've got a family. You've spent the bulk of your adult life, not just in the Army, but, on the tip of the spear, doing some really edgy stuff. And now all of a sudden, you're not doing that. You're back home in Middle Tennessee. You're doing what your heart's telling you to do. But what's transition like for you in this time period? Was it easy? Was it challenging? What was that?
I'm fortunate that I probably suffer from OCD and ADD and every alphabet that you can think of. But it was a lot more difficult looking back than I think I realized it was at the time. And I'm very fortunate I had the wife that I have because she was the absolute rock of it all. And she dealt with everything with such grace because she did not want me to leave. She did not want me to get out of the military. Yeah. She loved our lifestyle, even though I was gone a lot. She was grateful, and I think she had this sense of pride in our family and her husband as a soldier. Yeah. And I just don't think that either one of us were really prepared for the difficulties that would take place. I mean, it was a very strenuous time for us financially. Yeah. I had a steady income as a soldier, with bonus weekends and all these things. And I'm trying to pursue the music. So every second that I wasn't serving, I was doing something in music. Yeah. And that entailed being at writers' nights till late. And then, and quite honestly, neither one of those were enough financially to support, so I always did something else. I worked as a sheriff's deputy. Yeah. I was doing vinyl siding. I was working at Walmart. I was doing anything I could do to make enough money and get insurance and keep things rolling.
But yet there was this. This is fascinating to me because I had a kind of a similar path when I got out of Special Forces. I mean, that was what I'd wanted to do since I was 14. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm not. And the challenge I had was I didn't find art, storytelling, and theater. I kind of found it by accident. And when I did, it was financially strapping on us. Monty had to really step up and lead us through that, I think, because I was so immersed in learning how to write a play and how to act and speak from the stage. But at the time, it all seemed crazy. It all seemed like I'm putting my family through a lot here. I've already put them through a lot in the other life, and now this. But yet for me, I felt like if I didn't do it, I was going to die.
Yeah.
You know, what was for you when you were pursuing this next ridgeline in music? What was it as a driver? Did it consume you? Did you know that this is what you had to do, or how did you feel about it?
I don't know that it consumed me, and I do know for sure that it was not. I questioned whether or not I should be doing it the whole time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you, I questioned it even after I had started having success on radio.
Right.
And you got to remember, when I started the music industry, we didn't have TikTok, Instagram,
none of that,
Facebook, none of those avenues to help us, generate notoriety in that business. We had country radio and television. That was it.
Yeah.
So if you weren't doing those things, you weren't in the business, basically. Yeah. You were just like every guy down on Music Row.
Right.
You were just, and I don't want to say, I don't mean this as an insult to the guys down on Row when I say you're nobody in the business until you reach a certain level of notoriety.
Right.
And that's difficult, even as a songwriter.
Yeah.
You got to get cuts. People got to be recording your music, and that takes time. You got to develop a repertoire of songs.
Yeah.
You got to develop songs that the publisher that you're writing for is even wanting to pitch. So it was very difficult, and every day I questioned it. And even what was really weird was I would go to work at Fort Campbell and come home, go to a writer's night. This happened for 3 years.
Yeah.
And every time I would think, screw it, man, I'm done with this. I'm going back in the Army. God would do something. He would put a little carrot out there that would make me feel like, well, okay, I am supposed to do
You have
this.
any examples for that, or anything come to mind?
Well, what really made it happen was, getting songs. Like I would go to write, and I would be in the studio, and I would do my own demos to save money. That's the only reason I started singing.
Yeah.
A demo costs money, and if you had to pay someone else to sing the song, that was more money. And the way this works, I'll just give you a real quick brief synopsis or overview. I got a publishing deal. Publishers pay you it's not a like in the military, we got a check for our work.
Yeah.
I didn't have to pay that back. In the publishing business, they give you an advance. And if you are fortunate enough to get a song recorded by an artist that you wrote, when that song makes money, that money goes to the publisher to pay back all the money that they had been giving you. Now, once you've paid them back for everything they've given you, then you split the money that's coming in.
Right.
So up to this point, I'm not making much. I'm making like $200 a month. But to me, it was like, holy cow, they're paying me money to write songs.
Wow.
But every time I did a demo, that went to the bill.
Yeah.
So I would try to reduce that as much as possible, so that knowing in the back of my head, if I do get a cut, I'm going to pay them off quicker and I'll start making more money.
Okay.
So I would do my own demos. And in the process of doing those demos over this time, people would say, bro, you should be singing. You got a great voice. And I was doing a demo one time with a song that I wrote with Marla. Her dad is Buddy Cannon, one of the biggest producers in the business. Buddy heard the song and said, hey, I want to pitch you to some of the labels.
Wow.
And this happened. Little things like that. That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Getting ready to go. We had a lot of no's. And I'm like, I'd come home and tell Karen, I just don't feel like this is where I belong. I don't belong here. Now, keep in mind, in our careers in the military, especially in the fire support world, as a FO and in the community, if someone knew where you were or what you were doing, you were failing at your mission.
Yeah.
I mean, you were not, And now I'm in an occupation where if you don't know where I'm at and what I'm doing, I'm failing.
Well, and like you and I were talking about as we were walking in here, you're like, this is weird for me in some ways because, like, on the one hand, I did all this in the Army, and now it's like right here, public facing.
It's still,
and it is to me
20
too.
years later, it's uncomfortable.
Well, so what would you say about veterans in the arts? To me, you really represent for a lot of us who are in transition or who are, looking for the next thing. To me, you did it right. Like a lot of us feel like you didn't lose who you were. You've brought that world with you, the relevant parts of it, and you've left the parts maybe behind that needed to be left behind. And you just, I don't know, it's refreshing to see a veteran who has stepped into the arts and has done so much for the military community, but also so much for the country, just in your gift, your art. What is your take on veterans in the arts? And I mean, how do you feel about it as just kind of an approach, I guess?
I think this is very difficult because I have a different take than a lot of folks.
Okay.
One, I think they bring something to the arts that non-military personnel will never have. They have a sense about them that they're able to. For one, military personnel tend to communicate better, especially those who have had some tenure in the military.
Yeah.
Because they've had to.
Yeah.
They've had to communicate on levels. When you start talking about the community, you got people talking to other worlds, other countries, different cultures. So their ability to communicate, I think, is much stronger than the average person getting into the arts. So I think they should take advantage of that, utilize that resource that you've been gifted with, whether you consider it a gift or not. But the take that I have an issue with that I tell service members, and I've got some friends that are former military that are in the business right now. One in particular, he's doing well, and I'm not going to say his name, but I think you have to be real careful about standing heavily on this platform because I think it takes away from one's talent and ability.
Go deeper on that.
So what I'm going to say, when I first got into this business, the music business, I was extremely adamant about not becoming the singing soldier.
Okay.
I did not want people to play my music just because I was a soldier.
Right.
And I was the same way in the Army. I didn't want you to bring me over to your unit just because of who I was or anything. I wanted it based on my skill set.
Yeah, man.
I wanted you to hire me because I was the best 13 Fox, not because, my buddies, First Sergeant whoever said, he's a good dude.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I do.
I approached the music. I magnified that 100 times. I was extremely careful. When I would go do radio interviews and they say, so tell us about the Army. I'm like, man, I was in the Army. It was cool. It was a great gig. Nothing like shooting bad guys. And they would steer clear of the conversation because they did not want to talk about shooting people.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't want that to be my platform.
Right.
And I see guys coming into the business now that are soldiers. And I struggle with it because it's hard to go to a guy and go, because he sings his ass off and go, man, you're singing your ass off. Find a different song.
Yeah.
If this is your therapy, do your therapy. But if you want to be a professional in this business, it needs to be about more than just your military.
That's really straight, man. And I think it's solid. When we did Last Out, I faced a similar thing where I started as therapy. I did. It was a modality for healing for me. I never thought it would see the light of day. But as it started to get an impact, and in fact, Gary Sinise, a mutual buddy of ours, Gary ended up sponsoring the play after the Afghanistan withdrawal for a year. And one of the things he said was, we got to take this next level.
Yep.
And everybody has to play at that level, or we're going to have to find a new cast, and we trained our ass off, and I think that was what surprised a lot of people. They would come to the show thinking they're going to come to see either self-indulgent veterans talking about, their whatever, what they went through, or an after-school special that everybody will just clap politely for the veterans on stage, and that, I don't know, that's always mortified me too, because I don't want to play in a space, because this isn't, every element of the arts has a standard that's been around for a long time, and you either meet it or you don't, and it's tough.
It's tough. It's a balance. I still struggle with it every day. I went back in the Army. Yeah. And the one thing I said is I don't ever want any of my friends, the guys that I served with, the guys that know me, I don't want them to ever think that I'm trying to take advantage of my military service to become more successful.
I think it's really candid and necessary. I do. I agree with you, and I think that I'm glad you said it. And because there are ways to pursue the arts that are not industry
Yeah, and there's
specific.
nothing wrong with, I mean, you should be like this particular individual. I mean, I love him and I'm proud of his service and he should be very proud of that. And I think he should stand and say that, but he should also, because he is equally as good a singer, I want him to receive that recognition for that.
That's absolutely.
Not because of this.
100%.
You know, this is part of who he is and what
Yeah.
makes him, I think it gives him credibility, again, in his ability to communicate.
Yeah.
And he can reach people that I think an average singer might not be able to reach.
Yeah.
When he goes and does certain shows, they're going to be veterans that are going to relate to what he's saying better than they might someone who's not a veteran.
Well, I think that's spot
But I
on.
want him to receive accolades outside of what it of the uniform.
Yeah, no,
which
I
is
love
what
that.
I've struggled with. And again, like I said, I went back in the damn army.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did. Like you that's
And it's a struggle.
Yeah.
When I go do a national anthem, there's nothing more uncomfortable than to be a W1 in a room with, a few 3 stars or 4 stars, and them going, "Hey, Craig," and I'm standing over here at parade rest.
How do
going,
you wear those hats? I mean, Chief Greer, Craig Morgan, country
tough.
music stuff. How do you manage that?
I've just I try to be the best at what I'm doing
At each of those.
At each of those.
I think that's spot
so
on.
when I'm in uniform, I'm adamant. I have another warrant that works with me, and I'm adamant about ensuring that the people that I'm with understand I'm still Craig Morgan, but when I'm Craig Morgan, I'm still Warrant Officer Greer as well. I try to do well, and I may never see a level of stardom that a lot of guys aspire, but I don't care. My platform is completely different now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm God Family Country, and I realize that that's why He put me here, and so I try to do that. So I try to be the best representative for all 3 of those elements in my life as I can possibly be, no matter what I'm doing.
I love that, man. Let me ask you I got a couple more questions that I want to ask you, but I think these next 2 are really important because all of this conversation, I think, leads us to this point. One of the things that I find myself doing a lot these days is leveraging storytelling as a modality for healing, as a modality for bridging gaps and connecting. And, I work with a lot of veterans, particularly in the special ops community, Gold Star families, with Gary. An entire generation of war fighters, a 20-year war, have really been scuffed up, many of them, and the way the war ended, and they're trying to make sense of it and come home, and some better than others, but that's just a space I work in a lot. And one of the things that strikes me about your approach to life is that you've faced a lot of struggle in your life, and I think struggle is a universal thing. It's something we all go through. But you've been through a lot, and mutual friend of ours, Matt, has said to me, it's like, the thing about Craig is the highs and the lows, he stays Craig. You've stayed true to yourself and what you do, but that's not easy. And so do you have any insights? I cannot fathom the level of loss that you've experienced in your life, but yet through all of that, you've found a way to repurpose that struggle and come out on the other side of it with putting amazing stuff back into the world. I mean, do you have just any thoughts or perspective on your own experience with struggle and what you've learned from it?
For one, I'll tell you, I never feel worthy of having conversations with other people who are struggling, because what I've learned in struggle is that it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Having lost our son, and I'm hesitant to say lost because we didn't lose him; he died.
Yeah.
He's still a part of our life.
Yeah.
But I attribute every bit of our ability to function and maintain through my Savior.
Yeah.
If it weren't for God, I don't know what I would do. Prayer for me is my sanity.
Yeah.
It's my peace. It's where I find comfort knowing. And I see all these analogies all the times, like, where were you when I was down, and I can see me in His hand, Him holding on to me. And what I've learned, and I believe this with every fiber that's in me, and this is what I speak on when I talk. Whether it be a graduating class at a military unit or it be a collegiate organization, it doesn't matter. Pain, there's no question pain is part of the progress. And I think the problem with our society is we got to a point to where we tried to alleviate pain.
Yeah.
Instead of embracing it and understanding it, that it is part of the building process. And that's hard, especially when the pain is so great, like the loss of a child.
Right.
That's hard. But when you realize that God, and my wife says God didn't do that. And I say, no, he did not, but he allowed it. And that's hard. Why would God allow that? I have Christians say, or non-Christian people say, well, why would God allow a baby to die? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wished I had the freaking answer so I could talk to that parent and tell them I don't know. But what I do know is that he allowed it, and he allowed it for some reason. And we may never understand it. And they're like, oh, well, we'll find out when we get to heaven. I don't think so. I think when we get to heaven, this shit won't matter. It ain't none of that gonna matter.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so perfect and so graceful that, everything that's bad here, we won't feel there. And that pain that I'm going through now, and this is what I'm getting to, and I talk when I talk about pain that we suffer, whether it be in our physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, whatever aspect of our life, it's not always for us either.
Yeah.
And I think the greatest testament, obviously, is Jesus Christ dying on the cross. I don't compare our soldiers and our lives to Christ by any means. But when you think about a soldier who is willing to suffer, and it's not for them, not always for them. It ain't always just for their own benefit. And, we always hear soldiers say, I never hear a soldier say it as much. We do say, I'm willing to suffer for the guy next to me and the guy to my left or right, whatever. It's true. But it's not even just for them.
Yeah.
It's not even just for their kids and their wives at home or their spouses at home. It's for everyone. They're willing to suffer to keep us free. Yeah. And I think when you accept that pain is part of the process, and it is not always just for you. The pain that I feel for the loss of my son, I've learned that it wasn't just for me. I didn't need that to continue in life.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, in fact, it made it worse, made it harder. That was tough. It still is today. I had a real close friend, military buddy, 6-8 years after my son died, said, you got to get past this. I said, bro, you don't get past this. And for you, this was 6 years ago. For me, it's every day.
Yeah.
And when we lose friends, close buddies, and I think about this, I was very fortunate in my military experience. I didn't have a buddy die in my arms. I know guys that have, and they talk about it. Like, you don't get past that, bro.
No.
You don't. You embrace
with you forever.
And you live your life to the fullest that you possibly can because of that.
Yeah, that's right.
And represent.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean you go out and, put the uniform on and wear the hat, but you live the best life you can live because they gave theirs. And you embed that into everyone else's mindset and try to share that.
Yeah.
And pain is part of the process, and it's not always suffered for your own benefit. Yeah. And I didn't learn that fully until I wrote The Father, My Son, the Holy Ghost.
Wow.
And I started hearing the stories, and I realized.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so evident in that, and in other songs too, and other collaborations you've done.
But you never know. When you, just like your play, you never know who's going to walk away from that going, I'm not doing it today.
Yeah. And there's a part in the play, and I want to get you to it at some point. We did it right here at the Franklin Theater with Gary 2 years ago. But there's a point in the play, Craig, where at the end, I play Danny Patton in the play, and there's a point where Danny has let go, and Kenny's at his side, and they're about to ascend, and they see Valhalla. And Danny literally breaks the fourth wall. He says, thank you first to Kenny, for help, for sticking with me. And then he turns to the audience. And in that moment, I say, not Danny, I say, thank you for letting me say goodbye to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in what people don't know, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but every single show, every single city, I look up there and they're with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard to describe, but it's the only reason I do it. It's the only reason I do that show, because I get that moment with them and with the audience. And it is God's in the room, and I know it. And I know there's a level of peace and restoration that is just almost not of this earth. It's not of this earth. So I totally get what you're saying. And I think that it is, but struggle's the only way, that's the only way through that.
Yeah.
It's the only way to that. And it's a hard thing to get your head around, but once you do, it kind of changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. When you can tell yourself, it's part of it.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
My youngest son, when Jerry died, my youngest Wyatt said, a few months later, he was really upset about it. He says, it's just, it is, I know it is what it is, and we just have to live with the suck.
Yeah.
And we do. We bear it,
Yeah.
Yeah. And soldiers, I think, and this is why I love that community, the people that serve our nation.
Yeah.
They live with a level of suck that most people will never comprehend.
Can't even fathom.
Can't fathom. And you know what else I say? And I'm okay with that. I'm completely comfortable with that person that's sitting downstairs who has never truly suffered, and they do not understand all of it.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, there's no need to resent them.
That's right.
There's no need to resent them.
That's right.
It's almost self-defeating.
That's exactly
It's
right.
self-indulgent.
And you should, in fact, you should embrace the fact that they don't have to, and you did.
Yep, that's it. That's
And,
beautiful, man.
And bless you for being there.
Tell me about the lake up in Alaska.
Oh, it's one of the more special places. When I bought that place, I will tell you first, I lied to my wife for a long time. She didn't even know I was buying it. I had hid money for years.
Yeah.
And bought it as a bit of a getaway for the family.
Yeah.
Just less than a year after I bought it, my son died. And it became, in fact, we had planned a trip for all of us. And I went up by myself the first time. And I just like, man, what a place of solitude and peace. And I remember FaceTiming my son, Jerry. He was in college. And cell phones don't work. And it was a God thing, man. See, God knew then, and I look back now, I can see he knew what was going to happen, and he gave me that moment to be able to share that with Jerry.
Wow.
And at FaceTime, and I walked all around the little place and showed him, and he was at the dorm with all the football team, and they were, it was one of these, we're kind of jacking with each other a little bit. It was a really cool moment. And I'm like, when you take your break, we're all coming up, me and you and the boys. And it was going to be cool. Called my son Kyle. FaceTime didn't work. Called Wyatt, didn't work. But it worked with Jerry. And I talked to him, and they were coming up. Well, Jerry passes away, and Wyatt, my youngest, said, I don't want to go. He just, and I get it. It was okay. I was okay with it. My oldest son, Kyle, went with me. And I'll never forget, we were there just, we cried a lot, thinking about how, it was supposed to be all the boys, and how our life had changed so much at this point. And it was really difficult. But what I realized, it turned into something, and God knew this all along. Yeah. I thought it was just going to be for me and my family. And one day my son says, every time we would bring friends, they would tell us, this changed my life. This changed my life being here. Wow. Bring up another friend, and then I'd have a veteran buddy stop in for a couple of days, whatever. And my son said, we should really introduce this. This could be a good business, Dad, Yeah. I think he just didn't like his job, and he was looking to do something else. And that's what we've done. We've turned it into a business where we take people, we take very small groups.
Yeah.
Normally 4 to 6 is the max I would like. When we have veteran groups, we'll bring as many as 8.
Wow.
Because the veteran mentality is different. 2 guys don't mind bunking up in a room together,
Yeah.
But we spend 5 days with them in this completely off-grid environment. And our mentality is sometimes you need to disconnect to reconnect.
Love that.
And that's what we do.
My dad, he's a woodsman. He has 43 years in the U.S. Forest Service, grew up in the Smokies outside of Asheville. He's on his last leg now, but he led an effort to restore the American chestnut tree. And he says
I've read this.
If we want to get back to human nature, we got to get back to nature.
Yeah.
You got to disconnect to reconnect.
That's a fact. You do. And every group that we've ever had through, every group, there's not one that hasn't said, this has been something that will forever have changed me as a human. And it's what it does. I equate this to at a much smaller level, but I talk about relationships, and you do too a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I've watched your podcast, and I love it because you talk to, the guests that you bring on. But one thing that I've learned is when you're in an environment, and I learned this, I did a show, a TV show on with a bunch of celebrities called Beyond the Edge.
Okay.
They took a bunch of celebrities and put us all in the jungle, and we had to compete and live. And I, without going too deep into that show, I always told all these people, when you're placed in a harsh environment, regardless of what it is, the relationship, the bonding effect is much greater.
Yeah.
And I think that's why soldiers have the ability, their relationships are so much greater than that. Right. You know, when we go to work, a lot of times we're going to work in an environment where we may not come home.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to the same office that you went to, but because we shared offices, or we shared the job. And by office, I mean, you might be in Afghanistan, I might be in Iraq, or I'm in Panama and you're in wherever. Yeah. We're in a different office, but the job's the same.
Yeah, chewed the same kind of dirt.
We still have that bond, even though we weren't there together. But when we're there together, it's never changing. Yeah. It's interlocked for life.
That's right.
When you do that type of when you share that experience like we did in the jungle, and these are people that can't even fathom the military life. Two of those people had never started a fire in their life. I don't mean like with flint and stone. I mean with a lighter.
With a lighter.
They've never lit a fire. Yeah. They just didn't understand it. Walked away from that 10 days experience, lifelong friends with completely different
Isn't that amazing?
Ideological and sociological perspectives. Yep. Lifelong friends.
Yeah, the universal connection of struggle.
That's right.
I mean, that's where we find each other.
And that's what I think, even though it's it's not the same level by any means of struggle, but when you're out there in that environment, you know, you're experiencing a relationship and it's life-changing.
Absolutely.
And I love it when I see it. And especially when we bring, and you talked about Gary. Gary sponsors 2 groups a year to come out there. Wow. And these veterans, a couple of them, we have a mutual friend, have sat and told me after the fact, this changed me.
Yeah.
The share, what we've got to share, it's almost like you bring some of what they experienced in that environment in the conflict to this more subtle and relaxed environment, but same bonding experience. They no longer have to revert to those thought processes that they might have been entangled in.
What you say that it recharges you. I'm the same way. What is it about nature that does that?
I think it's the peace. And for me, it's a spiritual thing.
Yeah, me too.
There's no question. How God did, he made all this. And it's just when you slow down and you see it and you absorb it and smell it and you can feel something and sense a calm that you will not experience in our daily life as we're running. Right. I mean, I get so frustrated with myself. I'm a guy who thinks he can do everything and fix everything. And as I get older, I find it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But I still believe it in my head, No,
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to close out on your music, Craig. The American soundtrack.
Yeah.
I got a million questions on it, but I'm going to be disciplined about it. What was it about this amazing album that led you to do it, and why now? Like, what is it that brought you to this piece right here, right now?
Well, I'll tell you, when I make an album, from the very first album, the self-titled Craig Morgan album, to this current project, unbeknownst to me, I'll say this first. First, all I ever wanted to do was write, record, produce, and deliver songs that the consumer wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't want to downplay the arts side of it. Obviously, that's who I am, and I've accepted it and learned and know that that's where God wants me. But that took a long time. So it's called the music business.
Yeah.
In order to be successful, you got to be successful in the business aspect. It's not enough to write a great song that moves people. You got to be able to sell it. You got to be able to move it. You got to be able to do those things.
What is it Steve Jobs says? Real artists ship.
That's a fact. So I knew that from the get-go. In order for me to become a successful artist, I had to sell product. So I've always, the back in the back of my head, the right side or whatever side of the brain that's creative, trying to balance those two. So I started first, though, with the idea of making great music that people would buy.
Okay.
Then, as I progressed in my career, I realized, and this project, in my opinion, was the culmination of understanding my platform.
Gotcha.
My platform has always been God, family, country, even when I didn't know it.
Huh.
And I come to realize it after the book and through writing the book. I knew that this is what God wanted me to do. So I just embrace it. And when the songs would come in, if they felt like they fell into that category, I paid more attention. If they didn't fall into that category, I listened. And if they were great songs, we would put them in the pile.
Yeah.
If again, they had to first they had to be able to be well produced, well sung, well delivered.
Right.
I had to do all those things. And then I put them in the pile. And then we picked out the ones that fell into my platform.
Right.
Which didn't mean that every song had to be God, family, and country. Some of the songs, for example, Blue Collar Prayer. Yeah. That's a little bit of the country and a little bit of God as well.
Yeah, right.
You know, American Soundtrack. It's for me, it's country, because I believe that our nation is built on the backs of those people that celebrate those songs that they relate to.
Right on.
So that's what that song was about. God's problems. For me, that's family, that's country, God, it's all of it. And it epitomizes my thought process in my mind. I do everything that I do in life just to try to not be one of God's problems. I want to try to,
it's a great filter.
It sounds so cheesy, even as it comes out of my mouth.
But it's not, man.
It seems so like not real, but it's truly what I believe, and it's what in my heart. I live it every day.
Yeah.
I just want to try to be the best me I can be. When my son died, we started a brand and a company that we never really pursued, but we live by this philosophy. All of my children, and they teach it to my grandchildren and my friends that know me. We live by this. We want to be happy, right. And not HAPPY. We want to be HAPI, having a positive impact.
Wow.
I believe when you're doing that and you're doing it with a godly spirit, it doesn't matter what comes and what happens, good and bad, it's going to be beneficial.
My dad calls that leaving tracks.
Yeah.
Leaving tracks on this earth. And that's exactly right. I'll end it with enlisted. That project, it's got such a duality to it.
Yeah.
But, obviously you've gone back in, you're serving again. But I feel like you also enlisted on every one of these songs some amazingly relevant voices, not just in their talent, but what they do in the world. One in particular, because the song Almost Home, even as my dad is fading, like that song probably comforts me more than anything, because he's in that dream world more than he's here, right?
Right.
And I just find a lot of solace in that song. I just listened to it yesterday, and but yet then you bring Jelly Roll into it.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because that had to be for you to see the transformational, you talk about being great in the industry and also in the service, but to have that kind of impact on him, that song, and then for him to come alongside you and bring, his voice to it and have, exponentially higher impact. Like, what was that like?
I will tell you, Jelly Roll was the beginning of something for me that he probably doesn't even know today. It was the beginning of me accepting my role within our industry. This is a tough gig, man. And I don't mean like physically and mentally, emotionally, but it's a fight and scratch. It's hard to stay relevant in this business. When I first started, everyone wanted to talk to me. I've been doing it for 20 years. It's hard for them to find something else to talk to me about. They've been talking to me for 20 years. So really the only thing that I can bring to the table for a radio interview with the station that I have been talking to for 20 years is new music.
Okay.
And staying relevant in this business is difficult, even with great music. So that Jelly Roll, though, allowed me to visualize my role within this business.
Okay.
It's not that I'm the old guy. I'm not the old guy in the business because I can outrun every one of them. I can out PT them all.
Yeah.
You know, I might be older, but I ain't old by any means.
Right.
And, you know, and I still got a lot of fight in me.
Yeah.
But I have tenor. I have experience. And, you know, in the military, as you progress in your career, you take that with you, but the two never separate themselves.
Right.
The experience and the validity.
Yeah.
You know, maintaining some sense of validity, being valid within your business.
Yeah.
Because if you're good at what you do, you're still valid.
That's right.
In this business, you can be good at what you do, and it doesn't make you valid.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when he did that, I developed a mindset. Again, unbeknownst to me, it was happening. I can look back and see it now. That's my role. My role is to work and be there for these new artists.
Wow.
I'm not going to play. You know, there's so many new guys coming in our business every day. You cannot put enough people in enough stadiums for every artist to play stadiums every night. It's just not going to happen. It's not scientifically possible. So there's only so much space for those people.
Yeah.
And as you progress in your career, eventually those arenas and stadiums, they're going to start spending that money on the new guys. It's okay. I'm very fortunate that I still get to do a lot of shows and I still get to play for a lot of people. We've established a fan base, and weirdly enough, I go ask people every night, how many of you have never seen me? And I'm blown away by how many hands come up that haven't seen me after 20 years. But what I learned, like I said, that's because of me doing and working with guys like Jelly Roll, Luke Combs, Laney Wilson.
Right.
These guys that are so valid in our industry right now, that my validity comes through their relationship.
Yeah.
And when they first started, it was the other way around.
Right.
Jelly Roll established some validity by knowing that song, and he didn't do it intentionally. It was a God thing.
Yeah.
But he moved me that night on the Grand Ole Opry when he made his first appearance, and he talked about what that song meant to him.
Right.
It moved me.
That's relationships in action.
It's absolutely 100%.
I mean, that is human connection in action.
And to this day, I have so much love and respect for that guy. And he catches a lot of crap because, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, you can't be a Christian and talk the way he does. I'm like, you got no idea. You got
Absolutely.
no idea. That guy has a love for the Lord. And he has a love for changing people's lives like no one I know.
I mean, that's both you guys are just so authentic, and the world is starving for authenticity, man.
We should take no shame in our faults.
No.
Again, pain, progress. It's our fault is what makes us and builds better character.
Yeah, 100%. I've been in recovery from alcohol a lot of years, and if it hadn't been for some people that thought the way you just said that, I wouldn't be here. You know?
I one of the funniest questions, I was just the other day talking to someone in an interview, and they asked me, when I transitioned from the Army to this career, you know, what was that like? And I said, man, I'm working on it.
Still in it.
I'm still at it.
And I think we will be until we draw that last breath.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that,
That's
though.
okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Well,
and it should be. You should apply that thought process to everything that you're doing.
It goes back to what you said about relevance.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, my dad, and I know I keep going back to him, but the dude's my hero, but I also think he's probably the best leader I've ever known. You know, he just like 2 weeks before going in the hospital, the ICU, for what will probably be the final time, he did a podcast on the American chestnut. Like, because he knows that like his voice is the most relevant voice, and he wanted to make sure that he got some stuff out on that before something happened. You know, and I think that reinvention and as you said, just staying focused on being relevant, you know, as long as we can, and just skid the car in sideways, man.
Yeah. You know, I'm comfortable with the fact that someday I'm not going to be relevant in this industry, but I'm also confident in knowing that when that time comes, God's going to have me somewhere else He wants me. I just believe that.
It's amazing, brother. Well, look, is there anything that we didn't hit that you feel like or that we did hit that needs to, you know, hit more, or anything that you'd like to say before we close that we didn't cover? Or
no, just
folks watching?
Only thing is, I just yesterday went and visited the Veterans Center at Middle Tennessee State University. Yeah. And one of the things that I learned there is, and we all know about suicide amongst our veterans. I would tell our veterans that are suffering right now and having these thoughts, deal with the pain.
Yeah.
Don't give up. And don't even do it for yourself. Remember, there's somebody else that needs to hear what you're feeling, needs to know what you're going through. Don't quit. Even if you want to quit on yourself, don't quit on the others that depend on you. And that's our roles as soldiers. There are people depending on us. In this world, people depend on our military. I say not just our nation. Other nations depend on us having a strong military. And whether you're active, reserve, or veteran out, there are people still depending on you.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
I love that message. And I would echo it to our civilians watching this and listening to this is remember that, we got to be at the shoulder of those men and women and their families and not turn the page on them like we tend to do sometimes when it gets a little inconvenient.
Yep.
And Craig, I call it the generosity of scars when we repurpose our struggle in the service of others. And I've met a lot of people in my life, man, but I think you do it as good as anybody I've ever met. And I'm grateful to know you, to call you a friend and for what you do in this world.
Well, thank you. I don't want to go to heaven. God say, remember when I put you here and you didn't do this? I don't want to be that guy. But anyway, I brought something for you.
Oh, okay.
I did a collaboration with Buck Knives a bunch of years back.
Wow.
And I was real proud of this because, you recognize that the
100%.
tone of that blade, but it also has a cutter on the back. I developed this for both first responders, military, and outdoorsmen. So we have the gut knife that doubles as a seatbelt cutter.
Okay.
All of the aspects of this are made for those folks in mind. And I wanted to bring you
Craig,
one.
thank you so much, man.
And it's numbered and everything. So this one is yours.
That is amazing. Thank you so much.
Wow,
That's going to go in the podcast studio at home on the wall of honor behind me. You'll be able to see it every time you watch the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you sincerely for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I don't know if you know the reach that you're having. Like I said, when I was called and said, "Hey, you want to do?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Of all the podcasts that I could possibly get to do, these are my people.
Thank you.
And again, we weren't together, but we share a lot of the same. And I'm grateful for you and what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
So
Appreciate
keep it up, please.
God bless you, man.
God bless you, buddy.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. All right.
Well,
and thanks to everybody for watching. It means a lot that you're here. If this resonated with you, I hope you'll share it with folks that need to hear it. And there's a lot of people that do. That you'll give us a rating and that you'll subscribe and keep coming back. Until next time, we'll see you on the rooftop.